What is going on, everyone? Happy Tuesday, not Wednesday. It is February 17th. It's like episode 138, whatever we're going to call it. But welcome on into the Ryan Ripken Show. Hey, look, we appreciate you guys' patience this week. We're trying to get our ducks in a row. Spring training's rolling. Football came to an end, and we're trying to get a lot of great opportunities for you all situated. And there's another situation that I'm dealing with that I can't talk to you guys about, but in due time, you will find out that answer. But we got a jam-packed show today, Zach. We got Jim Duquette that's going to join us here in just a few moments. Then we're going to have Buck Showalter join us later on. So if you guys are getting the memo, it's a lot of baseball today because there just isn't a whole lot of football, and that's okay. Maybe we'll have some other football guests later on in the week, or maybe Olympic guests. But yeah. Hey, Zach, how you doing?
Doing well. Good to be here. Happy Tuesday. Yeah, it's another one of those weeks where I don't know what day it is. Like it feels like it could be Tuesday. It could be Thursday. It could be any day. That's how it's felt. But yeah, happy to be here. So, exciting show. A lot of fun guests.
Yeah, we got a lot in store here. And a lot's kind of happened as far as the news. Yeah. We'll get into that if you've missed it, from injuries to resignations to maybe the start of something maybe special, depending on who you ask. So we'll rock with that. And Jim, if you're ready to, let me know. Just give me a thumbs up if you're ready to rock and roll. And Zach, I don't know if I hear an echo in yours or that's on my end.
It might be on mine. Let me see. Okay. When Jim comes on, I'm going to exit and re-enter. Maybe it's
okay.
mine.
Hey, Jim, are you ready?
We'll see what's happening.
Jim, give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Jim? Up, down? Yeah, okay, good.
There we go.
Good. We're working on our signs here. Okay. Let's bring on, you hear them all the time. Sirius XM for MLB Network Radio, SNY for Mets coverage, and he's had a few things in the front office, including here in Baltimore. Let's bring on Jim Duquette. Jim, we got to work on our sign language.
I think the universal thumbs up always works. I can hear you now. I could not hear you before, but we're on. Let's do it, baby.
We're doing it. Hey, I appreciate you. I was hauling ass trying to get up here through some traffic. Got a couple things in the works that I will text you about because I had to pick your brain on it. But maybe to start off, spring's here. You've had a lot of spring trainings under your belt. What's one of your favorite memories or moments with spring training each and every year? Everyone has a different one. Ben McDonald's was the bringing a gator into the clubhouse. Do you have any moments, hopefully not as colorful as that? Oh, did I lose you, Jim? Jim, are you there? Oh, hold on a second. I can't hear now. Okay. Let's see. Can you guys hear me? Let me know if you can hear. I don't. Yes. Yeah, let's try that, Jim. And if our audience, if you can hear me, let me know. There's also been some technical difficulties when it's come to the social media spots right now. So, yeah, okay, you guys can hear me. So, you know what? Jim's the problem. Just kidding. He's not the problem. But audio was. But we're going to talk about all that and a whole lot more. Just so you guys know, we did talk to John Means yesterday as well, so we'll be playing some clips from that interview that's out. And our channel members, you guys got to see that live yesterday. And we are going to have a show, planned. And if it changes, just look out on the notifications. Just we have some moving parts. Usually we take this time off to get ready for the baseball season, but we are trying to get as much content and guests on as we can while we're planning that. So, Jim, can you hear me from behind there? Is that better? Yeah, thumbs up? Okay. Take two. Jim Duquette, everybody. Is that better?
Oh, it's way better.
Yes. Okay. You know what? It happens. We dodged a bullet there. What I was saying was you've had a lot of spring trainings and spring moments from being down there as part of a ball club, also then as the media side. What's maybe one of your favorite things with spring? And then do you have moments that you recall looking back at all the years?
I mean, I think the main thing that stands out, even in this role, going to spring training, how laid back it is. Like the best part of spring training, like you have access to, like if you're a fan, you go down there, you have access to players that you won't have during the regular season. Players are more inclined to sign autographs, to even have a conversation with you on occasion. And everyone's in a relatively good mood because they're starting out 0-0, right? Everyone thinks they have a shot. Like, I think there's some things like that really stand out. I've always enjoyed going down there. Just for me, the evaluation part of it when I was in the front office was like, okay, we have a whole new team. Many times it's a fresh start for guys who maybe had a bad season the year before, guys who had a good year. Like, oh, I can't wait to see their next level. Like some of the young players, like there's always something to see with each guy that we had in camp. So that's what I always love that, but I miss that part of it too. Having the conversation daily about, like we might have a conversation, Ryan, with about 6, 7, 8 players, 9 players after a game or after a workout every time. Hey, this guy looked good. Hey, this guy didn't do much in the wintertime, whatever it might be. So, I think all of that kind of stands out. I always, spring training is that kind of fresh start and kind of optimistic look forward.
Yeah, it really is the one period of time where everyone feels that they're on a level playing ground and every team can have optimism, even if they're not expected to, be one of the contenders. There's still hope, right? That's the beauty of it. And it is a lot more laid back. As a player, I miss just being down there. I miss the 6 weeks where you're shooting it. Especially if you know what your responsibility is going to be. For me, I had years in the minors where I had no idea what my plan was. And then I had a couple of years where I knew exactly what the plan was, and you were able to kind of get, enjoy the process. But yeah, once the season starts, Jim, the heat gets turned on a little bit. And then that's when that stress kicks in. And another part, by the way, for everyone out there, how people play in live BPs and how they do in spring training games doesn't mean it's going to correlate to the regular season games. I mean, do you have any of those memories of guys that you went, man, this guy's having one hell of a spring, and then maybe it didn't turn out, or vice versa, where, gosh, I'm a little worried about this guy, and then he hits the ground running?
I'll give you the one example that stands out when I was there with the Orioles, and Mike Flanagan and I were running the team, and it was my first spring, and all I heard about, and I mean, listen, I'd been with the Mets prior to that, so we didn't see him a lot, was Miguel Tejada. And Tejada was a guy that he was a 7 o'clock player. Like the game starts at 7, man, he showed up, he delivered. He had some unbelievable seasons in the league, right? Former MVP was really, really good at playing up the middle at shortstop, but also being a middle of the lineup bat. And the first spring, I swear he could not hit anything. I mean, he was striking out to the point where we got towards the end, and I thought he had something wrong with his eyes, because he could not make contact. He looked terrible. And we had an exhibition game against the Nationals in Nats Park, and it was a nighttime exhibition game at 7 o'clock. And if you want to talk about just going off, like he had 3 hits, he's hitting rockets everywhere, and it was in my brain. I'll never forget. I'm like, well, the star players, man, when the lights go on, that's when it matters the most. What were we all worried about? Tom Glavine, when I was with the Mets, he was the same way. He's throwing up there 78-mile-an-hour fastballs,
Mhm.
80-mile-an-hour fastballs. Like where is the velocity on the fastball? And then all of a sudden, here comes the first game. He's throwing darts, getting outs, mixing them change-ups off of fastball. So there's a lot of those examples, but most of the time with like the everyday players, the star players, they're just getting themselves ready for the start of the season. So anything they did in the spring didn't matter. It's just the guys you were kind of alluding to yourself, like, okay, sometimes you didn't know what was going on and how much playing time. So you had to go in there and you had to earn playing time. And there are a lot of guys like that. You get fooled many times, like Melvin Moore fooled us, both good and bad, over his career. But and so you have to be careful when you're making evaluations on those type of guys, but you also have to have, an understanding with certain players, like, hey, you haven't made the team yet. You need to have a good spring. And if you make it, that doesn't mean you're going to be on the team at the end of the year. You're going to have to continue to prove it. And I think that, there's probably a handful of guys in every camp they're in that situation.
Yeah, the veterans, the everyday guys know what they need to do to play a 162. It's the
Right.
rest of the guys that even if you're on the team, you had success one year. How do you keep doing it again? That was one thing that Chipper Jones told me, and actually it was advice from my dad, was
Right.
saying, congrats on a first hell of a first year. Now the challenge begins. And then once you get acclimated, right, you know what you got to do to be ready to play. I mean, Corbin Burns was an example a couple of years ago here in Sarasota, Jim. People going, whoa, Corbin's ERA is a little high. I'm like, well, this is the only time Corbin can choose to work on what Corbin Burns wants to work on.
Right.
But he's proven he knows what he wants to do when the games matter. And every year he's been healthy, he's been dominant. So that's an example on that front. There's a lot of different storylines. But there's one I actually want to start with before we talk about some of the current Orioles that are down there, just because it's news and I'm just not as well versed with this. And it's not about saying what's going to happen next year with the lockout or all of that. Specifically, Tony Clark, the reports, Jim, that he's stepping down. And I know there's reports of there's investigations going on internally. How rare, though, or is there anything, at least for this timing, for this to kind of be happening throughout the years? I mean, you would know more than me. Can you give just a little context about the situation and what it could mean as far as this late in the game for at least like the MLB PA side?
Yeah. So I think it's fascinating because if there was ordinarily you would not have the head of the Players Association resigning under any circumstance, especially with a year left before the CBA expires. But that investigation that you talked about has and it was opened about a year ago. And we don't know all the information, but you can assume that this was, progressing far enough along, and the players didn't want this to be a distraction where it maybe comes up during the course of the summer. And so there was some conversation about him resigning, ahead of time. It's very unusual, no question about it. And usually when you have a replacement, we're going to find out more. It seems like Bruce Meyer, who's the second in charge, who is involved in the last two negotiations for the players on this for the CBA. It looks like he's going to be an interim guy, and he'll be the lead negotiator again. And we'll see who else they kind of add to that group of decision makers. But I think what you're trying to do, and I talked to a couple players today. They were caught by surprise. There's an 8-player subcommittee. None of them knew. The 30 player reps, every team has a player rep, as you know. None of them knew. So it was a very kind of closely held secret that he was going to do this in the timing of it. So I think that we start there with that. There's no precedent for this. I don't remember anyone kind of resigning in the middle of their term like this. Usually, like Michael Weiner was the previous director. He passed away. That's when Tony took over. And I think that was in December of 13. But Tony had already been in the union for a couple years after playing, so that transition was seamless. And that's really what you're looking for. This is one of those where, if they have somebody from within internally, that's what the hope would be, so that the negotiation is seamless, moving forward. So I don't think it's going to be as disruptive as maybe others do, because they've been working on a plan for the last 2 years, how they're going to approach this negotiation. And usually they start to have this negotiation once the season starts, and hopefully we won't have a lockout. But listen, it's a stunner. There's no doubt that Marcus Semien, who has been involved, for a long time, he said it himself. He was shocked. Almost any player today talked about how surprised or shocked they were about the news.
Yeah, it's just always the timing, and not that this, you're right. I guess it being now instead of in the middle of the season, if there is a better timing for this, but that's why I thought you were the best to ask. You've been around,
Sure.
you've seen it, and, now we'll see where the chips fall with this whole conversation. And, now this will happen. MLBPA will move forward. And for the players, right, I think for them, if I were to guess, spring training's the other part where you can process a little bit more of everything outside, get your ducks in a row. Because these guys, they got to focus on playing, Jim. I mean, that's their job at the end of the day. And you mentioned, because Marcus Semien, you're going to spend a lot of time, obviously, covering with the Mets. There was a couple former Mets that are now in Baltimore. And, one being Polar Bear Pete Alonso.
Yeah.
Now Chris Bassett joined the Orioles here just recently. Your time watching, let's start with Pete. He seems very vocal as a player, as a person. I know he's very competitive, but what's something that you have noticed from Pete Alonso that Oriole fans and baseball fans in general might not know about him?
Yeah. First up, there could not have been a better fit this entire winter than Pete Alonso in Baltimore. What the Orioles needed, what he needed, it was. I thought that, as a Met, he did a number of good things. He handled the pressure situations very well. So there'll be nothing there that will surprise him. Obviously any type of rivalry, the Yankees coming to town, the Red Sox, anyone within the division, like he's gone through that plenty of times. He's got a postseason pedigree, and a very good one. Everyone, if you go back and look at what he did off of Devin Williams, 2 postseasons ago, hit a home run to catapult the Mets through the first round of the postseason and really upset them. And then they upset the Phillies in the next round to get to the NLCS. They don't do that without Pete Alonso and his ability. And, even in season, what I really like, and keep an eye on this, Ryan, because you'll see, I know you'll be watching every game.
Yeah.
Like he might have an 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts, and he looked just awful. And then the next day, it was like nothing happened. He put it behind him, and all of a sudden, he got a 2 for 4, hard hit ball the other way. Now he's back locked in. Like he did a really good job of just limiting let's say, a lack of success and putting it behind him. And he might have longer stretches there, but for the most part, he found something in the balance and the approach last year and he's always been a good hitter that also has elite power. So, that's something that, but he also did not let those those bad downturns affect him all that much. Now we'll see. This is a new environment. Sometimes guys press out of the gate to impress, the new fan base, but in terms of the mental side of things, he's really good at that as well.
I mean, quite frankly, for his career, right? 2023 is the only year where his average was down in 217. But you know what he did, Jim? He had 46 jacks and 118 ribbies and played 154 games. The guy, he's out there. He's out there each and every day. And, I told people here, around the area, and I think Baltimore fans would agree, and people that follow the Mets, Pete is obviously a force on the field, but his impact is felt even in that locker room and off of it. And I think for the Orioles, it was a perfect fit to kind of see that come to fruition, that a guy whose track record is, you can depend on me. And I think that's a huge part of this equation, which I think sometimes with the Mets, Jim, sometimes I felt like I knew how good he played last year, but he gets a little bit lost, not in the shuffle per se,
right.
But Juan Soto, Lindor, those are some big names. Those are superstar players that I think that's why I felt like Pete Alonso's value was a little bit undermined, in the process. But you can't argue his numbers. He's been probably top 5 most productive bats over the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. And you look at the power numbers and the runs batted in. I mean, Aaron Judge might be the guy who's hit more than him. He's in the top 3, I want to say, in home runs. If you look at going back to 2021, runs, but like a lot in the sport, for whatever reason, the runs batted in has been downgraded for some reason. Okay, until you have guys who don't drive in runs and don't do it in the clutch. And then you better have them, right? And Alonso does that better than most guys. And he'll get his, dozen or 20 that don't mean that much because the game's out of hand. But there's going to be the majority of them are going to be in important situations, add-on runs, home runs that you're like, wow, that was a huge turning point in the game. And the other thing, defensively, he took some hits, but he can really pick balls in the dirt. Like, he is one of the best. If you look at any of the metrics, that's one of the things that he does the best is throws across the diamond. If they're low in the dirt, I think he had like a 95% pick rate when it comes to errant throws. And when you have infielders that are throwing from across the diamond, they don't want to have to be perfect when they're making the throw. Like, they got to have the leeway, the mindset to be able to just throw the ball across there. And if it's in the general area, that there's a good chance they're going to convert an out, right? And they're not thinking about it necessarily. They just want to get the ball over there. Pete's one of those guys that he'll bail you out if you make an errant throw more times than not, especially if it's low and if it's in the dirt. So, I think that's going to go under or has gone under the radar. Eventually he's going to be a DH, and I think he'll embrace that. But he's better at first base, at least in that area. Now, there'll be some balls to his right he doesn't get to, and you're going to go, what the heck? Why didn't he get that? Okay, that going in. But he is a hitter and a power hitter. It doesn't matter what ballpark he's in either. You could have moved the fences back to M&T, and he'd still hit it out to left field at Camden. That's the kind of power that he has.
He certainly does. And I mean, hey, I'll take a wall scraper. I'll take a ball to the moon. If it's a homer, I just want Pete to hit about 45, 50 here in Baltimore. I think the fans would be over the moon about that. Before I let you go, then give me a little word on Chris Bassett, because I know a lot of fans, when Framber signs for $38 million plus a year, and you know what? Good for him. He got his money. As time went on, it didn't seem like that was going to be the move to Baltimore, because if you really wanted to, it felt like he would have been here. And $38.5 million, he got his short-term deal with some very good value. But Chris Bassett isn't just this throwaway piece that I think some people that don't know about him. This is a bona fide big league pitcher that has had a lot of success in this league, and not just success. It's been very documented success, and he's been able to eat innings and provide a really good force in a rotation. But you saw him up close and personal, Jim. Mm-hmm. Give me your take on Chris Bassett.
So I think he's one of the most consistent starters that we have seen. I'm just going to go back to 2021. And if you look at starting pitchers and you look at any of the qualified starters and you just use innings pitched, I think he has the 8th most innings pitched in the sport. And you don't realize it because he doesn't throw mid to high 90s anymore, but he has, like everybody, a 6-pitch mix. He knows how to pitch up and down. He goes east and west really well. He he doesn't hesitate to throw breaking stuff. He reads hitters really well. He takes the ball and wants to go deep in the game. Like he does not want to come out of the game. He realizes that if he's feeling good that night, he'll get the early count outs, and then he'll grind out strikeouts. His strikeout rate's still relatively high. It's not quite 1-to-1 with innings pitched, but it's pretty good for the drop off in his stuff over the years. Like, this is, I think, an ideal guy. And I couldn't believe he was still out there. The fact that the Orioles got him, I'm real happy about, because he'll take pressure off of the younger starters. He'll take the ball. Like, if you need, you used Albanese uses his bullpen a given day, and now here comes Bassett. Bassett will, if he's on that day, he'll say, "Hey, I can go 7 today. I'll go 8 today." Like, you don't see that anymore, but he's able to do it and willing to do it. That's the kind of shape he's in. He trains to kind of go there. So, and he's a little different guy, but he's a very intuitive pitcher that will help the young starters. So, when he comes, he's obviously friends with Alonso. That will be good. But I also liked about Bassett, looking ahead to the postseason, he was okay pitching out of the bullpen too. So if you're trying to figure out what the rotation looks like and he's not a part of it, stick him in the bullpen. He'll pitch well there too. So I really like that acquisition.
Yeah, I do too. And I know Oriole fans, at least here, they'll look back and go, wait, well, Charlie Morton 1 was a lot older. Compared to Charlie, not a lot older, but older than Chris.
Older, yeah.
But Chris's track record so far, for what he's done, you can't match what his stats have been, and you can't match his versatility. And then also, when people have talked about him as an individual, and actually we're having Buck Showalter on, at the top of the hour, Jim.
Yeah.
Buck called me to say, I go, "Hey, Buck, you're coming on the show. Why are you calling me anyway?" And he's saying, "Oh, I got some great things to say about Chris Bassett, the guy." So I'm excited about it. Are you going down to spring training anytime soon, or what's your schedule?
I'm going to spring training. I'm going to be the East Coast of Florida. I'm leaving Thursday. I'm going to hit those camps, your old stomping grounds over there with the Nationals and Astros, Marlins, Cardinals, finish it up with the Mets. So I'm hitting that side of Florida this time and be back after about 6 days. But looking around, there's still a lot of snow on the ground. You know where there's not snow? In Florida. So I'm looking forward to it.
I'm with you, Jim. I'm over it.
Are you going to go? You're going to go to Sarasota?
We're going to try to make a little trip here. Zach, okay. I mean, where should we try to hit? Come on here for a second, Zach. Hey,
I say we go all down. We already said we're going down Florida.
Yeah. So, Jim, we are going to try to go. I want to go to the Mets because one of my close friends, Mike Bauman, he's on a minor league deal over there. I'm trying to go see Mike. Let's see. I want to go see Stowie down with the Marlins.
Okay.
And I'll go to the Gulf Coast side. But I mean, you're going to have to give me the ins and outs here. What do I need to know, Jim, about these spots? How do I work spring training properly here?
All right. So the key for both of you guys, you don't want to be checking in and out of hotels. That's annoying the whole time. So when you go to the East Coast, find a place in Jupiter. That's the middle ground. You don't have to worry about anything else. You just go there. You can hit the Marlins. You're right there in Jupiter. You can drive up to Port St. Lucie. It's about a 40-minute drive. So not a big deal. There's plenty of places to eat in Jupiter. Mm-hmm. And then do the same thing when you go to the West Coast. You can go down. I think the best way is probably the Alligator Alley and over and up. That's probably the best way. And just stay right in Sarasota. If you're going to go any other places, that's when we would do the West Coast of Florida, and we would hit every team there. But I used to fight for making sure we stayed in Sarasota. So just stay there. Plenty of restaurants there. Everybody in that place anyway. Maybe you and Zach get a couple free meals out of it by staying there in Sarasota. Like, I'm looking out for you in that front too.
I like that. You know what? I don't mind free. When the time comes, it's nice. The bills add up here as we're scaling up, Jim, but we still are on a little bit of a budget.
Yeah. Budgets are okay. Are you guys going to drive? Or are you going to fly? Have you figured that part out yet?
Last year was a trip.
Yeah. So, Jim, last year, I love the camaraderie that we have with driving. Having said that, Zach and I had to bring a trailer back from Florida.
Okay.
So we did it all in one day from Sarasota. Went to Sarasota, had to drive to outside of Orlando to pick up this trailer to get some furniture for the studio here.
Okay.
And you can only go 55 with the trailer on the back. So a 16-hour excursion took about 22 hours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if it's that, I don't think Zach and I are going to make it from a physical standpoint, and a mental, we might want to kill each other.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. We don't want that. Do you have to do the same thing this time though? You don't need,
No.
So
I hope
you can still do that, make it quick, or you can fly down there. But if budget's still an issue, you might have to drive.
Jim, we need a camper. We just need a camper partnership. Let's get like a Winnebago and just go for.
You can have separation there. That's not a bad idea.
You see that? I'm assuming. Are you flying down?
I'm flying down. Yeah, I'm flying.
Man, must be nice, Jim.
Yeah,
must be nice. Hey, but I appreciate your time. Where can people make sure for all your coverage that you're going to be having down there for the next weeks?
Yeah. No, thanks. Sirius XM. I've got my show 10 to 1 Eastern time. It's Sunday through Friday. I've got a show on Sunday with Jim Bowden. You guys probably had Jim on before. So he and I do show, it's front office related, and then Monday through Friday. And then when we're doing these camps, these spring training camps, it's usually 6:00 at night Eastern time. It's broadcast, and we go to every camp, all 30. I'm only going to 5. We're starting in Arizona today in Cincinnati, and we'll start playing those too. And those are basically 1 hour shows, highlighting the teams and the pros and the cons and what to look forward to. So if you're a fan of any of those fan bases, I don't have the schedule in front of me. I know we'll do the Orioles, but it's going to be a little bit later in the month as they take the swing over there to the West Coast.
Well, perfect. Well, we'll make sure everyone follows your journey. Enjoy.
Appreciate it.
Let me know. I'll bother you soon enough because I got a couple things I got to ask you about. But
always,
Jim, I appreciate you.
All right, guys. Zach, be careful driving if you're driving.
Yeah, we will.
He's not allowed to. Hey, don't forget your sunscreen, Jim. Okay.
Hey, right there is where I need it the most.
Hey, I'm not too far behind. Okay.
You're hanging on better than I am. See you, buddy.
See you, Jim Duquette, everybody. Love having Jim on. Besides that, he knows a thing or two about baseball. He's been around. It's always fun. He gives me some advice. That's why after the show, I'm going to have to ask him for advice because there are a couple things that are in the works here that we're really excited to share from a Ripken media standpoint and from a Ryan Ripken standpoint. So that's in due time. But if you are new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. It's the Ryan Ripken Show. We are typically live here from 3 to 5 p.m. Eastern time right here on YouTube, X, and Facebook. But you can listen on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. But for these next couple of weeks, it might be a little bit erratic. So just keep your notifications on. We'll keep you updated. So, for instance, yesterday, couldn't do the show at 3. We did a recording with former Oriole and now current Kansas City Royal, John Means. And Meansy, we actually did that live for our channel members. So you guys got to see the interview live. We posted it, but go check that out here as baseball ramps up. And don't worry, we will still have a lot of football conversations as time goes on. But let's just be honest. There ain't a lot of football conversations to be had today. It's baseball, and we have baseball guest. Buck Showalter will join us later on the show. And Buck always has a colorful perspective here, Zach. And that's all I got on that one.
Yeah, I'm excited to hear Buck talk. So we actually, I don't know if you saw, but we just got an update from Jeff Passan on Tony Clark's resignation.
Okay.
And it has nothing to do with the pending potential lockout. It was he resigned after an internal investigation revealed he had an inappropriate relationship with his sister-in-law, who had been hired by the union in 2023.
Oh, no.
So as Jim said, usually you don't see people resign right before the, collective bargaining agreement expires. That would make a lot more sense. So interesting. So that is that was the passing bomb 5 minutes ago. As Jim was talking about it, my phone buzzed and I saw that and I was like, oh, okay.
Well, there you have it. That's that. I don't even know what to fully say.
We're gonna have to just wait for more things to come out on that, but that's what is being reported now. So, yeah.
Well, it is a change, and the timing of this, regardless, the timing is interesting. But I did hear what Jim said, and I thought that was a good point. Regardless of how it is, there's multiple people that have been working on all of this for a long period of time. So now we will see how it all will unfold. A lot of baseball. A lot of baseball conversations that are on the way. One of the notes around spring training, actually, there's been a lot down at Orioles camp, and we'll talk about that. But how about a potential trade piece that was not in Baltimore, but it was around Major League Baseball, because they thought, well, they're changing up some of their front office and their landscape. Maybe they'll finally give up one of their star pitchers, one of those guys being Pablo Lopez, Zach. And then yesterday, Pablo Lopez is throwing a live BP, and whammy, he's out. And now it's not just out because of precautionary. Now it's out because it looks like the reports are he has a UCL injury, and that surgery now is not off the table for Pablo Lopez and the Minnesota Twins. So, it kind of goes into this whole conversation about depth, Zach, and we're going to ask Buck Showalter about this. I know the Twins weren't expecting to, at least from the national media, wasn't putting the Twins as contenders here after how much they sold last year. But pitching depth is already going to be then tested, and this is the importance of having it. But Pablo Lopez, just scratch his name off of any of these speculations, Zach, for the time being.
Yeah, I think we figured out the dumbest thing in sports, and I'm talking all sports. Every sport you can think of, the dumbest thing a front office, an organization, a coaching staff, anything. The dumbest thing you can think is, we have enough pitchers. Oh, okay. Yeah. We have enough pitchers, because you don't. You never, we talk about it all the time. 17 players started for the Dodgers last year at pitcher. Like it is such, especially we talked about John Means a little yesterday. Like I don't know what the answer is for the pitching injuries, but they just pile up. And Ryan, has a pitching injury ever happened at a good time? No, it's always like this. Pablo Lopez coming in at his second, I think it was his second bullpen, maybe his first. Suddenly, elbow's feeling a little weird. Let's go in for imaging. Well, now we might not have a 2026 season for Pablo Lopez. And like you said, yes, were the Twins going to be the team that goes on the run, wins it all? No, I don't think so. But that rotation, you had a lot of talent there, starting at the top with Joe Ryan and Pablo Lopez. You thought if both pitched well, you probably saw one of them at the deadline again. Although, let's be honest, we've been putting Pablo Lopez and Joe Ryan as deadline and trade candidates for the past pretty much year and a half, and there's been nothing besides those, 15 seconds when Joe Ryan was traded to the Red Sox that then got deleted because it was someone misread the sources. It's one of those things where you feel for Minnesota, because especially as a front office, you just kind of get in there, and now, one of your star pitchers is out. But yeah, biggest takeaway once again, the second you think you have enough pitching, the baseball gods will remind you you can never have enough pitching.
And this is the way the game is. And it's always been that way, Zach. Truly, it always has been. And when a season starts, when you look at the teams that usually make it the distance, they have on their 40-man roster, they have so much usage of that. And for guys that they acquire via trade, via waivers, you name it, but it's that depth piece. All of those teams have it. That is what makes them go. Or you're the healthiest team of all time, and hey, good for you, but that rarely happens. You got to find a way no matter what. So in this case, for the Orioles, and I said it before, they didn't want to get burned twice, Zach, so they got more depth. That was more important than hoping you get one big name and one big ace. They acquired one that they think has upside to be a top rotation guy in Boz. Great. Team control, great. And then you get a guy like Chris Bassett, which, Jim's right. Innings over time here, Chris Bassett's in that top list where he's going to make his way actually in to probably, Zach, the top 7 this year, because other guys on this list aren't playing anymore. But that's just how long Chris Bassett's been pitching, and that's a great thing to notice here. But for Pablo Lopez, man, good player, good pitcher. But even for the Twins, that's going to hurt their chances. That's going to hurt about what they're going to be able to do short term and also,
long term.
Yeah, I mean, if someone gives you a big deal, you got to listen. But for now, Pablo Lopez is going to be on the shelf. Those are one of many of the situations that are being monitored. I mean, Zach, everything with spring, it's still very new. It's still very fresh. I asked Jim about, the spring trainings mattering. I love the fact that he brought up Miguel Tejada. It's hilarious. But it goes back to exactly the point of spring training matters differently for the specific players. And John Means, actually, we talked to him about that, Zach. Do we still have that clip that we could play? So we asked Meansy yesterday, because Meansy's been in both situations. He's been in situations where he knew he was going to be one of those guys going up to Baltimore when the season started. And he's also been on the other side where his camp performance would be a big reason if he were to make or be sent back down for that start of the season. So let's play that clip.
Training that I ended up, making the team. That was 19. You come in and basically every bullpen feels like you're pitching for your life, and you feel like you could get cut on any Monday that you throw, and so you're as that guy. You're basically. I went in. This is not the perspective that I recommend anybody go in, but I went in and I'm like, I'm going to blow my arm out, or I'm going to make the team. I'm going to see what happens. And I was trying to throw as hard as I possibly could every pitch, and ended up making the team and being fine that year. And so that is a different perspective than the 2020, 21, 22, where I was like, I think it was opening day, and so I'm just kind of projecting out, okay, how many innings would I need to get to in spring training? How many innings do I want to be able to go opening day? And so you're kind of just projecting it out, and maybe you're trying to work on a couple things here and there. I've never been a spring training. I've never done well in spring training. Numbers have been horrible usually. And so I would like to say that, spring training doesn't matter because my numbers have been so bad, but at the end of the day, you're getting your work in, and the real numbers that are going on the back of your baseball card happen, opening day and on. So, and so you're, as a guy that you're on the team, you don't worry about it as much, and so you might not have that same fire during those games at Ed Smith that you do, at Boston or wherever you're going opening day.
I fully understand all of that with John, because I never got to the position, obviously, that John was in for fighting for a big league camp spot. But that same thing trickles down from the big leagues all the way in the minors. And I know guys that have been in that exact situation. And I know guys that also are in the situation of, I just know I got to be ready for when the season starts. You know, on the minor league side, Zach, when I was looking at it, there was a lot of camps where you'd sometimes even meet with your farm director early on in my career, and they'd say, hey, this is our plan for you. Yeah. And sometimes that plan is we don't know what we're going to do with you. That's the reality, because in spring training, they probably have about 90% of their rosters taken care of, to be honest, like, be completely transparent. And there's a few guys they're wondering who could play their way onto the team. John Means, that the year he's talking about, he was trying to make his way to the team. And that year, there were pitching injuries in camp that, with where John was at least he did enough to showcase he could have that final spot, right? Gavin Sheets, friend of the show, friend of the program, big league invite to the Padres team last year, but he wasn't on the roster. Had an unbelievable spring training. Gavin had his best season to date, back out there with the Padres once again, more solidified with that team. So, Zach, when it comes to spring training and the success of certain guys, what's ever going to happen in these live BPs or in these spring training games, they might not carry as much weight. So, to me, Kyle Bradish getting lit up, not going to carry a lot of weight.
As long as as Kyle Bradish, as long as it's getting lit up, not comebacker at the face like we saw today with Gunnar Henderson. Get lit up poolside or oppo. No comebackers. No more comebackers.
Yeah. Yeah, don't physically get hurt. That's really it for a guy like Kyle Bradish.
But Ryan, it's also well, I was going to say real fast, it's no different than preseason games for the NFL. Half the starters sit out. You know, they might go in for a series or two, but their job is to get ready for week one. And then as you get to the second quarter, the third quarter, the fourth quarter, you notice, intensity's going up. Like, you can tell in a spring training game when it's guys getting work in versus guys that, hell, Ryan, they might not even be fighting for the major league roster. Maybe they're fighting because they want to be like, okay, I should start in AAA. I should start in AA. I should start here. I want to prove I can play with. And you can tell. You can tell when things start escalating in a game and suddenly it matters because, we use the example of Corbin Burns. It didn't matter if Corbin gave up a home run every pitch that he threw in spring training. Just like it didn't matter that Miguel Tejada couldn't hit a single ball, during spring. But the second those lights turn on and games start counting, like John says, as soon as the stats start going on the back of the baseball card, they show up. And those are the guys that it is a skill to be able to do that. Like, to go put in your work and then know, hey, when it's time to turn it on, I can turn it on.
And not just turn it on, how you need to get ready. That's the biggest part for young players that are starting to have success, is how do you replicate that your body is ready for the season? And it's not just 1 year. Young players, you can try to replicate what you did, but if you did that, try to build off of that. But the number one thing is, how does your body feel that it can get a 162? That's what Pete Alonso, for what all the people can say about long-term can be a DH or what's going to happen. Pete Alonso, when he's been an MLB player, he plays, and he plays almost every single day. And he knows what he has to do to be ready to go play a 162. Some of the younger players here who've had success, they need to figure out, how do I stay healthy going into camp? But then also, how do I get off to a good start coming out of camp? How do I feel comfortable? Because the reality actually with that, Zach, Gunnar Henderson was the guy that dealt with an injury last year. He's trying to find the best way for himself to get going. Jordan Westbrook's another guy. How do I find a way to put myself in the best position to be healthy and get a season going? And it's the same with the pitching staff. All of that matters for especially the young players. And once they figure that part out, it's going to make it easier. But on the guys for that have to make the team, it is that go, go, go mentality, and it starts from the jump. I'm not a big fan of trying to max out in the first days of camp. I saw one of the pictures out there as a video of him just humming it, early on.
Legrand,
He might have. I know Judge took – was that who Judge took deep, 102?
Yeah, he was throwing 102. Yeah, I agree. I think, I saw Garrett Cole obviously recovering from Tommy John. He's sitting right now at, I think he's throwing 93, 94, just tried to build up. And I think that's similar too. Like if you feel like you have to make the team out of camp, John Means said it yesterday, literally in the clip we just played. He's like, I was trying to throw, like, if I threw my arm out, I threw my arm out. I was trying to go a million miles an hour every bullpen because I didn't have, the benefit of, okay, well, if this doesn't go well, if I don't show my best stuff here, that's okay. I'm just trying to get ready. He was trying to make the team. He was trying to almost show like, hey, I'm ready. We won't play. We start 162 tomorrow. Put me on the squad. I'm there. And so I think it is also dependent on your situation. If you're fighting for your life, you're fighting for your career, a lot of these guys, you see them, these younger guys show up and they're trying to throw, go all out. They're trying to put everything into every batting practice. And I wouldn't be surprised. I would love to know the statistic on how much maybe that goes into guys burning out towards the end of the season in their first year or two when they had to go full throttle from the start of camp, it felt like. And now suddenly it's September, it's, early October, and you're like, wow, the body's feeling more wear and tear than maybe a guy who his whole start to spring training up until April was, hey, I'm just trying to get my body in the best shape so I can hit the ground running when 162 starts and not having to feel like you got to pitch your best just to make it to that 162.
At the end of the day, your goal is to be available. If you're available, you give your team an opportunity to win. And I think at times we devalue the ones that do that the best. And a person who can speak on one of the players specifically, Chris Bassett might not like it or going, well, wait a minute, where's that top of the line, front line ace that we wanted? What, so you're going to be upset right now that the Orioles signed a guy when we're talking about availability that's gone out there and proven that he knows what he has to do to be ready and he can go to the bullpen. He's not afraid of big moments. Yeah, he might not be pumping 98, 99 and winning the Cy Young, but we're going to devalue what that could mean to a ball club. And that's how it has to be viewed, because look at all the, when we say about upside of pitchers, upside's a beautiful thing. It means that they can take their game to a level that could put them in elite status. But the problem is, can you stay there for a long period of time? Do you know what you need to do to be a pro to replicate it again and again and again? So we can't devalue the guys that have proven their value over years. It's just a good reminder of that. That's the hard part of being a true pro when you get to the big league level. But Zach, he's probably seen a bunch of these circumstances. And one other part of spring training is some players are trying to just make a statement about how they play. And I know Buck has one of those. One of my former teammates specifically said that story at times. Sometimes you just make a good impression, and that can go a long way towards the future. So, Buck, if you're ready to rock, give me a thumbs up. Boom. Well, he gave me a call last week to say we're going to do it this week, but he wanted to remind me about the guy that I just mentioned about Chris Bassett and a whole lot with baseball season starting. Let's bring on former big league manager and former manager here in Baltimore, Buck Showalter. Buck.
What's up, man? How are y'all today?
Hey, you know what? I'm hanging in. How are you? How was your travels?
Great, except, air travel's become a real – if I don't go direct, I don't go. Let me tell you, Rip, it's you want to get down in society, go through airports. I figured out the airlines, they really don't care what you think. They go, listen, if you don't want the seat, we got 8 people waiting on it. What do you want to do? Mm-hmm. I took the train back and forth to New York.
Yeah.
That's the only way to travel. That's the only way to travel.
It sounds like if we're going to have a grind my gears, usually on Tuesday, for me, it's travel, and it's usually traffic of driving the highway and the parkway. Sounds like for you, airplane travel for you can get you going.
Well, have you noticed how people are traveling in their pajamas now?
I have seen a few, yes.
Okay. What do we got? Chris Bassett. I said the other day, might be the best sign of the offseason.
Yeah, you called me about that to make sure. And I think, one thing about Bassett, you said he's got, I'll use this is how I paraphrase. He's got some stones. He's not afraid to go out there in big moments, and he's dependable. You had him there. Buck, talk about him as a person and as a player.
Every season has its ups and downs. The thing about Chris, he doesn't let things snowball. If he has a clunker, he's going to be the same guy in the clubhouse the next day. He's not going to blame anybody. He's going to come in and go, let's get after it. He's going to do the drills in spring training like his first day in Little League. He's a good teammate. He's one of my favorite pitchers I've had as far as just bringing everything else. And you saw him in the postseason. The big moment does not sneak up on him. And he's got a talented hand. He can manipulate the ball in the strike zone. He's got these long fingers. He'll shorten up his breaking ball. Now, he's 37 years old. But for the money and the commitment and all the things considered, it might be the best sign of the offseason. I'm not shocked, but I'm surprised that other teams didn't jump on him because he's a guy. He's a guy. He's a pitcher he's a baseball player who happens to be a pitcher. How's that?
I mean, I think that's a great way to describe it. And, if you heard my little talk, Buck, about guys in spring training, you got to find what works for you. And I think in some cases, the perception is you want the shiny toy. You want that piece out there that is the quote unquote elite because you feel like that's going to put you over the top, which, hey, we know there's only X amount of guys that are considered elite, high-end guys. And I still trying to have people understand Kyle Bradish in Baltimore, I think, is one of those guys. Just got to be healthy. But above all, what makes Bassett so valuable is he's been dependable. And he knows what he has to do to get ready. You've seen so many spring trainings, Buck. I think with a lot of young guys that have proven they're big league players, the hard part for them is trying to replicate how to be ready to do it all over again. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, knowing where the finish line is, like Chris is going to go into the first day and throw about 87 miles an hour. The first thing I did, Rip, I heard y'all talking a little earlier, is I would make sure there were no guns, there were no iPads, and I didn't like a lot of people crowded around the bullpen on their first 2 or 3 outings. Yeah. Let these guys just throw. And, they shouldn't feel like they're being evaluated, because they know where the finish line is, and it's not in February. And people say, well, it's not a big deal. Don't worry about your first couple of outings. Then what happens? There's 20 people standing around the batting cage. Okay. And then there's 15 people watching the spin rates and the drop and all the different stuff. And these guys they're trying to please. And it's a competitive business. Well, I can tell you, Chris Bassett's going to walk in there and say, boys, put everything away. I'm getting ready for April. Okay. I ain't getting ready for February. And he's going to be a great example to all these people, Rip. I'm telling you.
Yeah, I'm excited to see it because, for this group, we've talked in the past about having a veteran presence and guys that have kind of been there and understand what it takes. And I mean, for Chris, he's coming off of pitching in the World Series 2, being asked to come out of the pen by any means necessary. Hey, we don't want you to start here, but we need you.
That tells you something about him right there.
Yeah.
He's got no ego when it comes to that. He's a good team. The other thing I like about him is he laughs easily. He laughs at himself. He loves a good joke. He's a fan of baseball. How's that? He's a fan of competition. We had I used to listen to him sit down and debate someone that had completely different views than him. And to watch how they would debate on the plane said a lot about Chris. And I don't have enough good things to say about him. He's not going to put number one starter stuff, but on a given night, he will pitch like a number one. On a given night, he will. And if you tell him that he can't beat their number one starter, watch what happens.
I mean, I think just the track record proves it. I think he has one season if people are going to go from the stats. He's got one season in the last 9 years where his ERA has been higher than a 4.16, which last year his ERA was below 4 buck. That would have put him in the top 30 of qualified starters. And I did the math again. There's 30 total. There's 30 teams in baseball, right? 5 guys in a rotation minimum now. That's a pretty good guy to get for a 1-year deal.
I tell you, he will make you wish at some point that he could sign him to another year. Put it this way, him and Max Scherzer are closer than thieves. They were bosom buddies there in New York, and they had a lot in common when it came to competing.
With that being said, because I want to ask you about Pete Alonso in a second, because he seems like a competitive dude too. But is there any stories that you can share with Bassett or Scherzer about that competition in New York?
Well, see, Max wouldn't. Max was serious to a fault. Okay, it was all business, and Chris used to try to tweak him a lot. You know, like, hey, lighten up. What's the movie from Stripes? What's the line from Stripes? Lighten up something. You guys are too young for the movie Stripes with Bill Murray. Mm-hmm. Lighten up Francis. He dropped the lighten up Francis on Max one night. Not good. Not good. You guys remember that movie, that line? It was great. The guy
I remember that line. I'll admit that I don't know the movie as well, but the actual quote, yes.
Right. Lighten up Francis. You know, but to hear them going back and forth, you know, Scherzer's one of those guys who would walk in the office about 2 days after he pitched. He'd look around, make sure all the analytic people are out of there, close the door, sit down and go, "What's up, bitch?" You know? And we'd talk, you know, and Max was great. Max appreciated, and Chris does too, they appreciate bluntness.
Yeah.
They want you to be blunt. They want you to, you know, it's the old thing, you can't handle the truth. Well, they may disagree with you. And I remember we were debating about how you should cover first base on the swinging bunt. And he wanted to argue and debate it, and I enjoyed it. We had a lot of fun with it. Mm-hmm. You know, then the play came up one time in a game, and, you know, and it proved me semi right. And I just looked down at him, he goes, "Shut up." You know?
But, you know, that fun interaction, Buck, you mentioned about guys like Bassett, you know, they enjoy the game. You got to enjoy this process, right, wrong. You got to be able to communicate it. And you got to have that competitive juice too, right? That can drive you to be successful. You know, another guy then on this side, you know, Pete is now in Baltimore. And all Pete has done for his career is essentially play almost each game. He plays 150, 160 games, and he averages 40 jacks and 120 ribbies. That's just what he does. Can you maybe speak a little bit on him I've seen the competitive side, but what do people not know about Pete Alonso, the guy off the field where he's already had so much success on it?
Well, Pete's approachable. He's a good teammate. He loves to play baseball and loves to play every day. Try to get him to DH or take a day off and see what happens. And he's a guy that you can trust with a contract. You know, Pete, his whole life has had to kind of prove people wrong, whether it's out of high school, at Florida, where he was drafted, and he couldn't do this, couldn't do that. Believe me, he goes into every season wanting to win a Gold Glove at first base. Mm-hmm. And he takes a lot of pride in people having confidence in him, his infielders. He collides with the ball 40 to 50 times every year, and it goes places where you can't catch it, okay, where the grass doesn't grow. I don't care. I don't even know where are they moving the fences to this year. It seems like they move them every year and then tell you it was, well, wait, you were wrong last year. Why should we believe you this year if you're moving them again? I don't get that. But it doesn't matter with Pete. You can put him back in Utah Street and he'll take care of them. But it's a good addition. He's a guy that you can go, I got that. And I tell you, if you don't want Pete to steal a base, you better shut him down. He'll take off there too. Likes to run the bases. He's just a big country strong guy. I'm not saying he doesn't condition and work out, but Pete's got those just country strong muscles. He's not, you know, you see him, he just, and he likes, you know, he likes being the guy on the line, and he'll hit good pitching. You know, it's not, a lot of these guys feast on mediocre pitching. Pete will put a swing on a good guy, and boy, no one's got to tell you what his exit velocity is. You can hear it.
Yeah, those are things, Buck, you and I have talked about, right? It's always nice when you can look up and go, wow, the guy hit a ball 115 miles an hour, but you can go, you know what? I didn't need to see that because I just heard this damn thing come off the bat and go whack.
Well, it's like the first time I've got to play golf one time with Tiger Woods, and the ball off his golf club has a different sound. It's a deep thud. You know, mine's clank, okay? But, you've heard of those guys who the ball seems to rattle around on their bat. Pete's got that clean click. John Scope had that clean click. And when you hear it 2 fields over, you know what it is. I remember the first time I heard John Scope do it, I go, who's that guy over there? He said, you guys hear that? And I go, what do you mean? I hear that. I go, you don't hear that sound his bat's making? Bring him over here and I'll show you what well, I didn't need the analytical tool for that. I just needed my ears.
For sure. Zach, I think you have a follow-up with talking about with Pete.
Zach, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you doing, Buck?
Good. I'm in Maryland right now.
Really? It's a lot of snow right now. It's melting, but there's still a lot of snow.
Yeah, I've been shoveling it off the back deck for 2 days.
Oh, I did my fair share. You can ask Ryan. I did way too much shoveling over the recent weeks.
Zach shoveled the wrong area. He helped other people get their cars out, but there wasn't the cars he was supposed to shovel out. You see what I'm saying? I got
you.
I just like to spread the love. I just like to spread the love to everyone. But Buck, you talked about, try having, giving Pete a day off and see what happens. Over the past few years, I think the least amount of games he's played in the last 3-4 years is like 154. How nice is it as a manager to just every single day be able to pencil in for 162 games? Pete Alonso is going to be in your 3 or 4 hole, and he's going to produce, and you can trust him.
Well, one of the most important things GMs do during the offseason is attack the what ifs.
Mm-hmm.
What if Pete has an injury? What if the shortstop can't play? What if this? You've got to answer those questions because the game doesn't stop. They don't wait for you to catch up till somebody gets healthy. And that's something I thought we did well in Baltimore when I was there. Is we attacked the what ifs really well. You'd like to have the what ifs be in your system, but they're not always there. So you go, the 6-year free agent acquisitions. But Pete is a guy that, that you kind of, I don't want to jinx him, but the guy just has that type of approach and body. And, he's flexible, but he takes care of himself. He eats well. He sleeps. He has fun. Pete smiles easily. He's a pleaser. I said, Pete, you got to say no every once in a while. He wants to be everything to everybody. And then one of the things I told him and Lindor, I just need you to go play first base and go play shortstop because, there's enough other things going on. But Pete's going to try to bring whatever they want him to bring. You got that contract. I've talked to Pete a couple times. You got that contract for a reason. You don't need to all of a sudden be the spokesman and be the captain and be the whatever. Just go play first base like you play it, and that's enough. I told Pete, you're going to love Baltimore. They're going to get you, and you're going to get the essence of the fan base. And it's going to be a really good marriage. Both these guys fit Baltimore really well.
And I think what Pete has done well so far, and Buck, you always did, and this is the little things. When you acknowledge the city and the community, the fan base, about how excited you are and what you want to build here, goes a long way. And Pete, from the jump here, talked about how excited he was for the opportunity. But you are right. At the end of the day, you don't need to go out there and prove – and to prove sane anymore that, you know what, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. No. You can go and prove it just by going swinging the bat and doing what you've done the last X amount of years. You've been one of the most prolific offensive players.
Yeah, Pete and Chris both. Neither one have the disease of need. It's not about them. You see Chris go in the bullpen. Pete, Pete, I need you. Pete's got a big heart. He's got a lot of common sense. But he likes people. He likes baseball players. I've never had either one of those guys come in the locker room in a bad mood and say, "Hey, what's wrong with Pete today? What's wrong with Chris?" You kind of put them over in a corner. It's about mining for nuggets. You got these 26 stones you're looking for. You take the rocks and you throw them out, and then you put the nuggets over here. Well, Pete and Chris are part of that nugget base, and they'll have a lot of fun. They'll have their ups and downs. They won't be perfect, but you can trust them, guys. You can trust them. That's what you're looking for.
That is exactly what I think Baltimore is looking for, and and as they get comfortable, right, and they can do that, their natural presence can allow their other players to get more comfortable. I'd like to think of that because I saw his comment in here. So Gavin Sheets, Buck, and I are very close out there in San Diego. Gavin's a little bit mad at me because I only find highlights when new pitchers come to Baltimore where I swear it's only at bats versus Gavin. So I found the one of Chris Bassett, and I'm like, wow, there's only one at bat that Chris Bassett has on tape in all of baseball, and it's Gavin striking out after taking a 3-0 heater down the dish, and then and then there's a 3-1 curveball, Buck. You'll actually, I know ABS is going to this, but I know your answer, but indulge me here, okay? You get a 3-1 curveball called on the corner, it's borderline, and you have a pretty good idea. So if they throw that pitch in the same spot again and you just got rung up on that, are you leaving the bat on your shoulder if you know you could call that? Yeah. No,
I'm hanging out some draft. Okay.
Yeah, so Gavin, if you're listening to that still, hey buddy, let's get the bat off the shoulder here.
Hey,
I got to go visit him in Arizona, but he had a great start out there.
Let me ask you guys a question. Have you noticed how many teams are surprised by injuries in the spring? Like, what have you been doing in the offseason? Do you communicate? We used to have everybody would get 5 or 6 guys, and you would call them once a week and just check in. And now these guys come to camp, and all of a sudden, hey, by the way, I'm hurt. Really? You think the Yankees? You think the Mets would have liked to know before they traded Osuna that Lindor was going to have surgery? I mean, I can tell you what the owner in Baltimore and the owner in New York I had would have done with the medical staff. He would have, oh my God, what are you doing?
I'm sure there's, and injuries, I got to talk to you about that here in a second, Buck, because from your perspective, and I know you have a strong opinion on the pitching side, and I want to get to bullpen because I think this is the piece where I know you value that. But let's start with this part because it's camp and spring trainings. At once upon a time, you were a first-year manager, right? So Albernez, he's come out and said in Baltimore, I feel like Stephen Vogt there, I've seen so many guys like Voter and other, managers run their camps. And I've done it. I've seen it. Now I'm the one that has to be the face, but I feel comfortable. In your mind, first time managing, new ball club, what were things that went through your mind there as you were trying to get acclimated for this new – you can be around, but it is a new opportunity?
Well, one, you had to be yourself, okay? The thing about baseball, we play so many games, we're around each other so much, players sniff out a phony in a heartbeat, and what you say, they will remember it. And I think it's not so much – we used to talk about let's don't do this till we get it right. Let's do this till we can't get it wrong. There's a big difference. And you don't need to always – more is not always better either. And you're not going to ingratiate yourself by letting them off the field after an hour. You should have purpose to everything you do and welcome questions. Say, here's why we're doing this. It kills me, guys, when I see the first week of regular season. Because all you're doing is you're rehearsing a Broadway play in spring training. You're rehearsing your lines. You're getting ready for the curtain to go up. You're rehearsing rundowns and cutoffs and relays and pickoffs and pop fly calls and priorities. You're going through all this stuff. So when the curtain opens, the show's on. And, you know how to work when the teleprompter breaks. But I see guys first game of the season not run a rundown properly. And I go, what were you doing down in wherever for a month and a half? What were you doing?
Yeah.
And I just think to have purpose and don't just try to jack them around with a lot of useless stuff. Everything should have a purpose and be part of the process that gets to the end game. And you want to have such a confidence with your team when you come out of spring training. Listen, I don't know what's going to happen. If Chris Bassett's going to pitch well tonight or not, but whatever. But we're prepared for everything that's going to come our way. Because the teleprompter will break and it will get off script, and your backbone of your fundamentals will play out over the long haul. And I think he'll do that. I mean, he's been around a lot of good baseball situations, and I don't know him that well, but I like what I see. And hey, I've been that guy too. I was 35 managing the Yankees, and everybody thought I, was too young. Probably was, but I had a 1-year contract, so I got after it. $175,000 to manage the Yankees.
Does it what was your emotions during that first year? I got to ask.
here's the deal. I had the press conference. They said, what do you think about a 1-year deal? I said, hey, I got a 1-year contract, so I'm on a 1-year plan. I'm getting after it every day, guys, and I'm going to see where it takes me. But this game's not for the timid or weak of knees or no backbone. I'm getting after it. I'm not going to look back and say I wish I'd have done this. And I surrounded myself with a lot of veteran people.
Yeah.
I had Don Mattingly in my corner. I had Clete Boyer and Frank Howard and Willie Randolph and Ron Guidry and Whitey Ford and Camp. I made sure I brought people there that knew what I didn't know. You got to know what you know and know what you don't know. And it's okay. Like catching. Every time this day, if I see a good catch instructor, I'm getting in his back pocket because I want to learn something about catching. And I want to make sure they're not laying down on their knee, not being able to catch a ball in the dirt on the other side. Don't get me started.
Well, I'm sure I could get you going with that.
Yeah.
I'm well aware.
Have you ever noticed how many wild pitches are opposite the knee down because they don't have spikes in the ground? They can't push that way.
I can see that bothers you.
Well, no, it's just common. We did the percentages analytically of balls that go the backstop opposite of the knee down. Anyway.
Hey, I know you have a very strong opinion on this because I agree with you. But one thing we've talked about with I'm going to use that line now, teleprompter is going to break. I think that's genius. That's another one of your Buckisms. Add that to the list, write that down. But it's true. The season, things will go wrong. And when I talked about with the Dodgers last year was an example, and as much as talent that they've had, they also had 15 starting pitchers throughout the course of the season. 15 different starting pitchers. They had to adjust. And Dave Roberts, I tell people, you can say they got Ohtani, they got Mookie, they got Freddie, they got all those guys, but you got to be able to manage the staff that you have, especially on the pitching side, and you got to find a way to make it work. You've always talked to me about pitching injuries. They're going to happen. But you always think that one of the priorities as a manager is managing your bullpen. And for the Orioles, I look at this case, at least for this is one team, they have maybe 7 or 8 quality arms that could start this year. And I know people are a little bit worried about the bullpen side, but can you explain to me why managing your bullpen as a manager is so important for the longevity of the season, but also the importance of what you're trying to accomplish in a year?
Well, there's such a thing as managers that play a good hand well. Like I think Dave Roberts does a great job of playing a good hand well. Joe Torre did a great job of managing a good hand well. That's hard to do sometimes when you've got a talented team, but you got to keep it focused. But a good bullpen and management of a bullpen allows a team to have a great mentality and morale because you know how much is enough. When teams are constantly going, well, I wonder if that's going to be enough runs tonight. I wonder what's going to happen after the 6th inning or 7th inning. And having that, we got to the point in Baltimore where the phone didn't even have to ring in the bullpen. Guys knew who was going to pitch when. But there are no roles if your starters are leaving after the 2nd inning 2 or 3 days in a row. Okay, one of our assets were the long relievers we had. T.J. McFarland and some other guys that would come in and keep the pieces intact for the game that we could win. And putting together the dynamic of a good bullpen it shouldn't cost you an arm and a leg either. And people in the minor leagues, that's how we discovered Zach Britton as a reliever, how Jim Johnson, they're both failed starters, so to speak. But, Brad Brock, Darren O'Day, the late Brian Mattis, Michael Gibbons. We started that out back when they were in the minor leagues. They were 6-year free agents. But they were a piece that fit what we needed, And, we didn't need somebody to go 9 innings. We needed Chris Tillman and these guys to go 6 innings and give us a chance to get 9 outs before they could score. And we were pretty good at that. But that came through a lot of trial and error. And keeping them healthy, Rip, I don't think guys get to go outside and take BP as much, but I would always walk around and talk to the 7 guys in the bullpen. That's what I would do. And I'd also talk to guys that weren't playing that night. Those 4 or 5 guys who were on the bench. But talking to bullpen guys about what worked and what didn't work for them, the dry humps kill Dry humps kill. So, we had 3 calls. We had a red, basically get the ball, get your glove, get the catcher, get on the mound, but don't throw. And then we had a yellow, which meant you started throwing whatever. Then we had a green light, which meant you're coming in the game. You can't go hit that adrenaline button all the time. I mean, managing a bullpen, if I walked in a ballpark and wanted to watch one thing that told me whether a manager knew what he was doing, I'd watch his bullpen usage. Not necessarily getting in the game and who he uses, but the ups and downs down there. I look down, there's a left and right-hander up in the 2nd inning. Are you kidding me? What? You don't already know what that's supposed to be? That's when I'd go check. He had no way of doing it in the bullpen.
Hey, Buck, what's the value then of having a defined role for a guy?
Your role is to get people out, but the defined role doesn't happen unless your starters are getting deep. Hey, I know you're supposed to pitch 8th inning. We need you to pitch in the 6th tonight. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
They'll tell you sometimes your closer should pitch in the 8th inning, but it's all there's, I see these field coordinator coaches they've got now, these 13, 14 coaches. Well, they need a field coordinator, FEEL. Like just having a feel for what, things change from day to day. Those things about be careful about telling truths that hurt innocent people. There's certain things that in the clubhouse that you can't let the whole world know that go into your decisions every day. But the role for a bullpen, you can say to them, in a perfect world, this is what we think you will do well for us, and this is how I'd like to use you. But that role would change. But we would give them a heads up when that role had changed that night. Hey, guy, I don't know if you know it or not, but I didn't want to be sending pitchers out. Every time they threw 3 innings in the relief, sending a guy out is tough on the morale of a bullpen and a unit. So we would just say, hey, somebody else is going to have to take the bullets because we don't want to send him out and have to wait 10 or 12 days to get him back.
Right. I think this to wrap up this conversation, Buck, Zach, we've talked about trying to keep guys healthy is one, and 2, about, that's the whole analytics of how deep you let your starters go in games. And Zach, I think that was kind of the question you wanted to ask Buck.
Yeah, but just, one, as it comes with starters and managing the bullpen, having guys that can, even if it's not going well, just we've talked about with Chris Bassett, can give you 6, 7 innings to maybe reset the bullpen. How important is it for you to know, and in situations of, hey, bullpen's pretty beat up right now, how often maybe did you tell a starter, hey, we need 6 out of you almost no matter what today?
Never, probably never. I would never put that on their back. That if we're not prepared, your job as a manager, like when I would say, okay, this guy, and before the game, when I'd sit down with the pitching coach and bullpen coach, you go, okay, this guy breaks his arm with the second pitch. What are we doing? If you don't have that answer before you go to bed the night before, you haven't done your job. And it should be seamless if something like that comes up. But I would never go to a pitcher and say, hey, you got to give us 6. I'm going to leave you out there to die. That's a horrible mindset for a guy to be in going out there to pitch. And guess what? Those guys in the other dugout are pretty good too. How do you know when to take a pitcher out of the game? Well, if there's a fight at the back rack over in their dugout, I'm probably going to take him out. But there are times, I can remember Chris coming in and goes, I got it. Leave me out there. I got this. But I don't ever put that onus on their back. It's not their job. It's not like it's these managers that go out and go, hey, you want to walk him or do you want to go after him? That's not his job. That's your job. Don't put that onus on him. You go get him or put him on. But don't ask me what I want to do because I'll face everybody. You don't put players in that position. It's not fair to them.
Yeah, and then real fast, quick follow-up. So with communication you just talked about, were there ever times where maybe before an inning, did you have communication with a pitcher going out there and being like, hey, what was the conversation like of getting that feel of, okay, how much do you really have left in you? Because they're probably going to tell you a little bit more than they actually have because of the competitiveness.
Yeah, you got some guys that you can see them kind of stand up so they can see into the bullpen if you got anybody ready. Those guys are ready to come out of the game. I'll tell you, Max Scherzer, everybody told me, man, he's going to be tough to manage. Max was just the opposite. I told him, I said, Max, here's the deal. When you come off the mound and I stick my hand up there, you shake it. And then if you want to go off and whatever about coming out of the game. Let's go up the runway. But Max was great. He would communicate. He'd go, hey, I got 2 hitters left. I'm getting there. Watch me. If I pop my glove, last hitter, have somebody ready for the 3rd hitter. I mean, it was easy with him. And we had a few moments where I said, okay, that's it. You're done. He goes, no, I go, let's go up the runway. And Max would voice his opinion. He was always competitive, but he always looked at things through a clear prism. You know, he didn't try to act like a tough guy and this and that, whatever. But there were times when he'd go, I'm good. It may not look good, but I'm good. Keep it going. And he also knew when the bullpen needed a blow. I didn't have to tell him. But guys like Max are few and not far between, but they're not that plentiful. Every guy's a little different. Some guy you gotta not believe what he's telling you. Some guys, quite frankly, can't believe you still left them in the game. They had a good outing and they want to get out of there. Now, you don't voice that. You don't tell anybody about it, but you got to know your pitchers. Once again, you got to have a feel, F-E-E-L.
We need a feel coordinator is what you're saying. Get a little feel. Hey, Buck, to wrap it up, what do you got going on? And maybe one, do you have any moment of all the years of spring training that moment that you had fun with?
Oh, I'm going to say involved as much as I kind of want to. I've had a few people kicking the tires. We'll see where everything goes. But, I used to love every year we would go to a movie theater and we put together this 20-minute tape. Instead of, you remember how awful spring training was the first day when you had to stand in front of your locker and have the doctors and the trainers and the traveling secretary and everybody that give all these lists. And all you want to do is get on the field. So we used to go do all that the night before at the theater. But I miss the talent show. We would have a talent show every year. Not necessarily I didn't make people do it. It wasn't a rookie hazing. If a new player came in, but we always had 15 or so guys that would do the talent show. And we'd let the veteran players be the judge. Rip, it was priceless. It was priceless. And I'd make everybody check their cell phone at the door. And there was no filming or somebody might get embarrassed. I mean, Ryan Flaherty brought these 2 monkeys that threw batting practice to each other. Damnest thing I ever saw.
That's insane.
I had, I got in trouble. I got fined by the health department and somebody else. Oh, animal cruelty got in my shorts about, that was an easy fine to play though. I saw guys do things that I went, I can't believe he's that talented. I mean, there was a couple of guys made the club by their talent. I said, you know what? If they've got the guts to get up in front of all their peers and do that, that's good enough for me. Those were some great, and we did it right. We had a stage, good sound system, and guys looked forward to it. They got in there early and got a seat, and we did it on a night game and early in the afternoon, and it was special. And we wouldn't let anybody else except the team in there, so these guys could really drop their air. I was very protective of the mode of privacy, like travel or the locker room. The first thing I do in every place is get everybody out of the locker room except the players. The only thing in the locker room are those 26 players. Now they got 50 people in there. Where can the guys drop their hair and be themselves? Okay, I'm done.
And I think also that's why when people want to showcase themselves more of who they are and how they are, they feel like that they're on constantly. So I get it. I always try to tell the guys now, I'm like, hey, you come on here. We've had players on in the past. Hey, we want to shoot the shit. We want to talk ball, but also this should be a safe space to just talk.
Yeah.
And I know that's the hard part in today's day and age of you don't feel that you can just.
Oh, it's a lot. It's an interview room nowadays, but I got it. They're needed and everything. I also miss the Clubby Olympics. You ever seen the Clubby Olympics?
I don't know if I ever watched or saw one myself.
They're special. They put a bunch of money in the kitty, and all the clubbies and all the guys work kits and everybody working in the locker room. They have these Olympic events. Yeah, it could be something like an egg toss. It could be a water balloon. It gets pretty involved, but it is some kind of entertaining. And these guys make a lot of money, and it's special. Okay. Yes,
that's incredible. Well, hey, Buck, I appreciate you taking time. Be careful shoveling snow if you still got to. All right.
I do it in shifts now. I don't go too fast. Every time I hear about people in snow, so I got to be careful at my age.
Yeah, please. I don't need to get a call from you next time to tell me about another player or something else on your mind, but then you go, Well, I messed up my back shoveling, and then you tell me about what happened during spring training, auditions or the talent show, right?
Yeah, but I tell you, you guys, you'll have a lot of fun with Chris and Pete. Good additions.
Cool. Well, hey, Buck, I appreciate you. Thank you, and I'll check in with you soon.
All right, God bless you. I'll take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Buck Showalter, everybody. Now, I'm remembering one of the talent shows I had to do with the Nationals, but it was actually during an instructional league. That's got to be for another time because we're running out of time for today. But now there are some things circulating. But the one thing that I've always appreciated, and I think is so important that people need to understand, there's two ways. But in that locker room, you got to feel like there's a trust. There's this, when they say about this brotherhood and this community of what you're doing, you got to feel when you go to work and you're with this group that we are in this all together. And then those things can be considered, quote unquote goofy. Dude, I tell you what, and Buck would say the same thing with it, Zach, and he already did. Those moments, you learn a lot about the guys you're with. And you also learn a lot about what they're capable of doing. And there's a trust that gets built by just having conversations with people. Above all in this sport and in life, you have to communicate with the people that you work with. In baseball, it's a job. You got to communicate with your, fellow peers, employees, whatever you want to consider it, to get the job done. And that communication starts in the spring, what you do on the field, off the field. The best teams are the ones that aren't necessarily the most talented. They're the ones that know how to use what they have to their advantage. And when things get tough, they know how to get out of it. Now, it does help when you have the monsters of a roster like the Dodgers, but I'm glad that Buck mentioned that. You still got to know how to handle that hand. You still got to know when things go wrong, because it's not a matter of if things go wrong in baseball. It's a when in this day and age.
Yeah.
And that's all I got.
It's true. It simply is just a when. It isn't an if. I got to say, though, Buck, just one of the best, most baseball knowledge you will ever come across. But I got to say, when Buck gets going, that's just, you just let it roll. It's incredible. Buck may be my favorite guest we have on recurring, but he just fantastic as always. And it's true, like everything he talks about when it comes to simple things in the game of like, Ryan, how many times have we seen just simple routine plays that you're like, how is this not gone over? Guy doesn't cover second on a relay throw. And you're like, what? You're like, how does that? And as he says, he's like, your backbone is what you get accomplished in spring training, laying that foundation. So Buck Showalter, one of a kind, incredible guest as always.
And he gave a lot of great insights, not only for the game of baseball, but a couple of the current Orioles now, Chris Bassett and Pete Alonso. Well, Zach, that's going to do it for today's show. If you are new to the channel, hit that like and subscribe button. I'm going to move over to get the music real quick.
I will say, though, sometimes but the Buckisms, field coordinator, fantastic. That's a good one. Field coordinator, I think that needs to be implemented. I think he nailed it, Ryan, now that you can hear me, with field coordinator.
Yeah, we might have to develop a field coordinator here at the Ryan Ripken Show.
It's all about having a little feel.
Yeah, have a little feel. But you know what, Zach? I'm going to cue the music. Oh, don't you take me off the screen. Hey, now. Well, now you're off the screen. Oh, there we go. As always here at the Ryan Ripken Show, we appreciate each and every one of you. Have a day, have a night, have a great stinking rest of your Tuesday. We'll see you next time right here on YouTube X and Facebook. Be good.